record or your own instructions or your self-written user operator instructions. Gracious. Okay, so here are my thoughts. We've gone over the learning of energy, how to use it, not in like some great detail or school about it, but just the subject. Talked about building a character trigger, talked a little bit about the ego, and then talked a little bit about symbolism and putting these things together, and also talked a little bit about exercise, when to use one of these tools from these subjects that's meshed together, and you create a character trigger. And earlier I talked about when you hit that character trigger at a point in an exercise where you're just very, very, not exhausted, but everything burns and it just feels like you have to quit. And so what I want to get into there in a little more detail is, and this is from what I've learned, you can get to a point of disassociation where the reason that you were sitting down on the bike was not for anything external, because you want to put in new programming yourself from the inside for a really specific reason. So in doing that, you're not conducting yourself in any way that the outside world expects you to act, which creates our ego. So then you fully separate from what the world wants of you, and you're pursuing something very deep at the core to create. Then the old personality just does not apply, and it's just like poof, it disappears. And then you're opened up to a lot more energy, because the old personality was built in a way where all of its actions were going out into the world. But now what you're doing is you're maintaining your energy on the inside to make sure you're acting in a way that the world doesn't give a crap about, and will actually come up and say, hey, you're doing this too hard or something, stop. But you want to get to the point where you separate, and it's disassociation. But here is the cool thing. When you disassociate and you are aware of it, what you can do then is you don't have language, you don't have memory, it's just a blank slate. You do have access to moving energy and awareness and knowing what's going on. And in that point in time, what you do is you draw that symbol of yours in your mind with the energy, or whatever you want to call it, creativity, but you draw it in there while you're disassociated. Guess what? You took the record off the record player and you're setting your own record on there and you're starting it, because then you're like, hit that character trigger and you're basically putting in your own recording or your own record or your own instructions or your self-written user operator instructions, and you start to come online. And then what you do is right after that, you're like, man, this is what they do. This is what I do. This is what I'm doing. This is what I do. And for the longest time, you will be saying, this is what this character is. This is what it does. But then you'll get to the point of the brain has totally moved all the markers, and then the brain has kind of reformed and molded to all the way you've been programming it to respond or act accordingly to your directions. And it's not responding now. I shouldn't have used that word. But it's acting in according to your directions of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this in this manner. Hold myself in this way. And your brain starts to program that in really deeply, where that's just like a subroutine. So all you do, you can literally check out and you're like, oh, I do all this and I do it this way. But I think it's very important to continue this, and it takes practice. But what you're doing is you're mechanically going in, and I liked that, what's it called? That metaphor of having a record. We took the old one off because it's scratched here and there, and it'll bump, do the same thing over and over. even though it messes up the music, now you have a record that you put on that has smooth tracks and doesn't have any bumps, and the music is smooth and clear the whole time. Boom.